Welcome to our YouTube channel. Cry Aloud Messengers presents Leviticus 11. Jesus ate fish. Should we eat fish today? In our study, brothers and sisters, we want to see that we as the Seventh-day Adventists today, are we supposed to do as Jesus did during his time when he ate fish? Are we supposed to eat fish? We know that as the Seventh-day Adventist, we have the health reform message that we received as a denomination in 1863. The health reform message is telling us on dangers of eating meat. We will also see on our study that is it lawful for us to eat meat today? We know that Christ, during his time, it was lawful for him to eat fish. And we also see, brothers and sisters, that the light that we have today, it is progressive. It is not the same today as it was then when the beasts on Leviticus 11 were pronounced clean. We read from the Ministry of Healing, page 314 to 315, 1905. It reads, "In many places, fish become so contaminated by the filth on which they feed as to be a cause of disease. This is especially the case where the fish come in contact with the sewage of large cities. The fish that are fed on contents of the drains may pass into distant waters and may be caught where the water is pure and fresh. Thus, when used as food, they bring disease and health to those who do not suspect the danger." Here, brothers and sisters, we see that fish today is not good for us to use as food, as inspiration is telling us that the fish that we have today, it is not clean. It is contaminated by the filth that they feed on that comes from the sewage from the cities. And we know that these factories and industries, they dispose their waste on the dams and rivers. Hence we see our dams and our rivers today, they are not clean, they are contaminated. Hence our fishes today are contaminated, hence are not suitable for food. Fish is unwholesome and ought not to be used. We read from Unpublished Testimonies, January 19, 1895. It reads, "In many localities, even fish is unwholesome and ought not to be used. This is especially so where the fish come in contact with the sewage of large cities. The fish that partake of the filthy sewage of the drains may pass into waters far distant from the sewage and be caught in localities where the water is pure and fresh. But because of the unwholesome drainage in which they have been feeding, they are not safe to eat." Here, brothers and sisters, the inspiration is telling us that fish is unwholesome and ought not to be used. We as Seventh-day Adventists, as the children of God today, we are not supposed to eat fish, as inspiration is telling us that brings disease to us as it becomes contaminated by feeding on the waste from the sewage and from the waste from the industries. The curse is also upon the fish. We read from Counsels on Foods and Diet, page 411. It reads, "Meat eating should not come into the prescription of any invalids from any physician from among those who understand these things. Disease in cattle is making meat eating a dangerous matter. The Lord's curse is upon the earth, upon men, upon beasts, upon the fish in the sea. And as transgression becomes almost universal, the curse will be permitted to become as broad and as deep as transgression. Disease is contracted by the use of meat. The flesh of these diseased carcasses is sold in the marketplaces, and disease among men is the sure result. Here, brothers and sisters, we see that the curse of the Lord is also upon the fish in the sea. This tells us that the fish also have disease. Here, the quotation also tells us that disease is contracted by the use of meat. Here, brothers and sisters, we know that fish is also meat. As we say that fish is white meat, chicken is white meat, but the bottom line we see that fish is also meat. Thus, Counsels for the Church, page 229 says, the liability to take disease is increased tenfold by meat eating. In other words, we can say the liability to take disease is increased tenfold by fish eating, by beef eating, by chicken eating. All in all, brothers and sisters, we see that we are not supposed to eat meat. We are not supposed to eat fish today. No meat will be used by his people. We read from letter 3, 1884. It reads, if meat is discarded, if the taste is not educated in that direction, if a liking for fruits and grains is encouraged, it will soon be as God in the beginning designed it should be. No meat will be used by his people. We'll also read from Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 399. It reads, when Satan takes possession of the mind, how soon the light and instruction that the Lord has graciously given fade away and have no force. How many frame excuses and make necessities which have no existence to bear them up in their course of wrong, in setting aside the light and trampling it underfoot. I speak with assurance. The greatest objection to health reform is that these people do not live it out. And yet they will gravely say they cannot live the health reform and preserve their strength. Here, brothers and sisters, we see that no meat will be used by his people. We as the Seventh-day Adventists today, as the people of God, we are not supposed to use meat. We are not supposed to eat fish. We also see that there are some who make excuses that they cannot be health reformers. They can't be health reformers just because the vegetarian diet is expensive, just because they need vitamin B. And also that what happened? They say what happened to Leviticus 11. Here, brothers and sisters, we see that we today, we have the health reform message that we received in 1863. So thus, as the Seventh-day Adventist, we must live up to the light that we have received. We know that the light is progressive. It is not the same today as back then when Jesus used fish as food. We know that Jesus, during his time, he ate only what was lawful. Meaning that if Jesus ate fish, it's okay. It was lawful during his time. We as Seventh-day Adventists, is it lawful for us today to eat fish? Is it lawful for us today to use meat as the beasts were proclaimed clean in Leviticus 11? You will see some people, they are hanging their excuses in Leviticus 11. Brothers and sisters, we must live up to the light that we have received. We saw that inspiration is telling us that disease has increased tenfold by meat eating. In simpler terms, this tells us that we are not supposed to use meat, whether red meat or white meat. Conclusion of the matter. Fish is unwholesome and ought not to be used because of the unwholesome drainage in which they have been feeding. They are not safe to eat. The Lord's curse is upon the earth, upon men, upon beasts, upon the fish in the sea. And as transgression becomes almost universal, the curse will be permitted to become as broad and as deep as the transgression. No meat will be used by his people, fish being meat, white meat. For more information, contact our admins at Cry Aloud Messengers. God bless.